Hi, everybody. We'll just wait for everyone to come in and take their seats. We've got some babies in the audience today, so it's actually the next generation coming in. All right, I think I'll get started. So good morning, everybody. We are delighted to have you here with us today for our Menzies Presents series. My name is Jade Hopkins, and I will be your MC for today's event. Some quick housekeeping notes before we get started. In the event that we need to evacuate the room, exits are located at the front and to the rear of the room. If you require the bathroom, they're located outside and to the right. The event is being recorded and there will be photographs taken at the event. For those of you online, can you please keep your microphone on mute for the presentations? And we'll have an opportunity for questions at the end, so feel free to utilize the chat function. To open this event, I'd now like to welcome Sian Su Lee for the Welcome to Country.
Gudlinya wa bachua, nanya sayan memeranjama, namule gulumerijin binitba. Bialira gulumerijin garmadira, but gawa gulumerijin duruwa gimia. Ganalda bidi bidi gawa darniki, bama gyambira darabelira. My name is Sian Suli. I'm a very proud Latakia, Waterman, and Kurudjari woman. I'm also a member of the Kibilo family, if you're familiar with Latakia families in Darwin. I am always so honoured to represent my family, my mob, and my community, to have your attention and to guide you through this moment of reflection on Gawa Darniki. I don't need to welcome you to this country, you're already here, but I can take this moment to acknowledge all of my ancestors who came before me and who rest in this land, and the elders that I'm so lucky to have to guide me and all of us today. Young people are our future. They are the next leaders and decision makers. It's our responsibility to ensure that the world they inherit has been cared for to the best of our ability, so that they may too enjoy the beautiful earth and environment that we can, and that they may pass it on to the next generation as well. It's a privilege to be in the room with so many of our future leaders and decision makers. Our future is in your hands. Where we stand is recognised Latakia country. Custodianship was passed to me by my gurang and my alap, my mother and my grandmother. Many of you find your home here on Latakia country, or you travel here often. I would like to invite you to take a moment to think of your ancestors and your elders and where they've travelled from, either from within this continent or from across Madeira, the saltwater. What has brought you to this moment to be here with us today? No matter where we are from, we are all intrinsically connected by the sky that stretches above our heads and the earth that is underneath our feet. This earth is the only home any of us will ever know. She is our mother and our provider. My elders ensured that I understood that our ancestors rest in this earth. We must walk softly, with care and with respect, so that we too may be protected. I ask that while you spend time on Latakia country, however long that may be, you do the same. So whether you have always called this very beautiful place home, or you were just passing through, I hope that you enjoy your time on Latakia country. Thank you, and enjoy your day.
Thank you to Sian for that beautiful welcome. Sincerely, thank you. I would like to acknowledge the Larrakia people as well and pay my respects to the elders past and present, and my respects to all of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the room today and online, and everyone who has joined us. It's wonderful to see so many faces here, especially all of you young ones up the top there, all coming together to celebrate the power of young voices in shaping a healthier future. I would like to recognise and extend a warm welcome to His Honour Professor the Honourable Hugh Heggie, Administrator of the Northern Territory and Menzies patron, to our honoured guests and to the representatives from the local schools, and to the staff, the students and the friends of Menzies attending both here in the room and online. Today's event is all about the next generation, recognising the strength, the creativity and leadership of young people and the role we all play in the future of health, country and community. We hope today is an opportunity to connect with others who share a similar vision as we work together to make a real and a lasting impact. For me, the focus of solutions for the next generation is something that's a key part of my journey in health research. I'm a proud Gurindjian Wurrunga woman from Darwin. I have a strong interest in microbiology, genetics, and Indigenous health. I'm working in the Ramashodi Regional and Remote Health Science Training Centre here at Menzies, where I also started as a student. And I'm now officially halfway through my honours research project on melioidosis. Pause for applause. I'm also passionate about science communication through art, and you can see some of my artworks on display in the foyer. In my role here at Menzies, I've been fortunate to be mentored by some incredible researchers who've generously shared their knowledge, guidance, and encouragement to support the next generation coming through. As Menzies also celebrates its 40th anniversary this year, this event is an opportunity for us to look ahead, because even after 40 years, the big questions still matter. Questions like, what's next and what's needed now? And that's where we, the next generation, comes in. We have a vital role in helping to shape what comes next, in leading new ideas, challenging the way things have always been done, and bringing fresh energy and perspectives to the world ahead. More and more, we are seeing young leaders at the forefront, co-designing programs that are inclusive and relevant, and using digital tools to connect people living remotely or even across the world. Their creativity and commitment are helping to bridge gaps, to share knowledge, and to inspire change. Our hope is that you walk away from today's event feeling inspired and energized after hearing from 5 incredible speakers, people working at the intersection of science, culture, innovation, and care. So what can you expect from today? We'll start with our keynote presentation, followed by a panel discussion with 4 local change members. Then we'll have the opportunity for questions before we join for a light morning tea outside. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's some really nice looking cupcakes out there. To start us off, it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Tiahni Adamson. Tiahni is a proud Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander woman and a passionate conservation biologist dedicated to climate justice and environmental education. As a youth advocate and science communicator, she's focused on creating a more equitable and sustainable future for both people and planet. As the 2024 South Australian Young Australian of the Year, she is a nationally recognised advocate for Indigenous science leadership in biodiversity protection and climate action. I have to read this, like there's just so much on here. Intergenerational knowledge sharing, grounded in First Nations land and sea practices, youth empowerment, particularly for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander girls and women in STEM, and systems thinking, blending social, environmental, and cultural determinants of health. Please give a warm welcome to Tiahni.
Thanks, sis. And kapul magibatanga, everybody. Good morning. That's in my language of Kalavyagallah. I'm a Karareg woman, and I feel so honoured to be here with you all today to have a yarn about inspiring you for the future. We're in some pretty grim times. I think the weight of the world is weighing heavily on a lot of us if you're interested in what's happening globally and nationally and socially across Australia and wider. So I'm really excited to take this opportunity to talk about hope and optimism and inspire a bit of action about what's happening on the ground. But we will touch down into the darkness a little bit, because that's part of the reason that inspires us for hope too. So I'd like to acknowledge this and acknowledge that we're here on beautiful Larrakia country, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and our connection with sea country, with nature, with one another, with custodianship, with community, and with deep language, law and history is as strong as it was 65,000 years ago. It still lives within the land, and it lives within all of us. There are pictures in my presentation of people who have passed. So this is a disclaimer for mobs, so that you can deal with that in whatever way that you need to across this presentation. Most of the photos are pictures that I've taken on country, traveling around Australia and internationally. And I've had a pretty incredible and interesting life journey so far. I think something that I really want to reiterate to everyone here today is that not all paths are linear, and not everyone knows what they want to do when they're 4 and they're asked what they want to be when they grow up. And maybe if you ask me right now what I want to be when I grow up, I still don't know. What I do know about how I want to be when I grow up is that I'd like to have a full life that has lots of contentment and joy and happiness, and that I make a positive impact and leave this place in a better way than what I found it. And that's enough of a life plan as it is. So I currently lead the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander engagement at Bush Heritage Australia, and I'm the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Engagement Manager there, which is a new role for me. I've been there for less than 12 months, and I've had an interesting pathway to get to that. Basically, what I do is work with mob all across Australia in response to climate change and our biodiversity loss. We're in a climate crisis at the moment. Basically, the ways that we've behaved as human beings has destroyed the earth to a point that we're experiencing on-ground impacts every day, nature fighting back and showing us that we're destructing country and that we're not living in harmony with the land anymore. So what I do is work with mob to support partnerships across 10 million hectares of Australian land, and co-design and make right-way frameworks to ensure that our traditional custodians are leading work on country to look after and support healthy country planning. We protect over 7,000 species with the work that I do across bush heritage landscapes, and we have emerging carbon and biodiversity markets as well that's led by First Nations enterprises. So it's a really exciting place to be. On our side of that, part of what I do at Bush Heritage is science communication. And I'm sure, has anyone sat through a really boring science talk or maths talk or English talk in their life before? Maybe you feel like this is one of those, and I'll try and change it up if you feel like that right now. Thanks for that. I realized when I was at uni and at school that there were so many things that I really cared about and was really passionate and interested in, but I found it hard to engage with the content because the way it was delivered was really dry and really boring. And I also am one of the people in the world who has ADHD, so I find it hard to concentrate on one thing and sit down for an hour and a half. Like I can see a lot of you are wriggling around right now. I'm one of you. Yeah, I feel you. An important thing to do if you're neurodivergent in that way and you struggle to sit down and stay still is to work out ways that you can bring in that passion of moving your body around and thinking about a lot of things at the same time into what you do. So I've used my ADHD as a superpower to do lots of projects all at once, which I think is part of what's driven me to be successful doing lots of projects all the time. One of the big projects that I've been working on over this year is I co-produced this podcast called Big Sky Country. It's the 3rd season that I've been working on. I travelled around Australia interviewing people and working with mob and different scientists and communities and landowners and farmers to talk about biodiversity and nature and how they intersect. And we made 6 episodes. The last one just dropped on Sunday. So if you like listening to podcasts, another thing that's good if you're neurospicy and you can't concentrate on one thing, put it in your ears and go for a walk or do something else at the same time. And Big Sky Country is one of the products that we've made, probably the biggest science communication projects that I've worked on. So part of this is engaging young people. We know that you don't want to listen to the news or read the newspaper anymore, and the way that you take on information is different to traditional media. So this podcast is a part or a product of that. A lot of my work has been super diverse. I've been on Science with Dr. Carl. Does anyone listen to Triple J? Too cool for Triple J? Some people listen to Triple J. Triple J's alternative new age music. So it's a cool thing if you're in high school to listen to Triple J. Dr. Carl does a science hour every Thursday where people call in and can ask questions about any science related thing that they'd like to know about, and we answer it live. So you're under the hot seat if you don't really know what you're talking about. It's a little bit stressful. You know, if you get a rogue question that you've got no idea about, I'll tend to look at Dr. Carl and be like, please help me. But that's been really fun. That's been a part of science communication, and working with him has helped to elevate my voice as a woman in science, which there's a lot less of us than there are men in science traditionally, and also as a First Nations person, which there's even less Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in science than there are women. So I'm in this little microcosm, a small amount of humans. Some of the work that I do in communication involves elevating the voices of stories of people on the ground. That's my favorite part, making sure that there are so many other people like me who are having their story told. Another part is doing media and comms. I was on a nerdy magazine cover. Of course, it's a nerdy one. It's the Adelaide Uni one. It's not something cool like Vogue. But that's what happens when you're a scientist. I'm holding a beaker full of seaweed. And the job that I was doing before this one was I worked on a methane mitigating technology. 1/3 of all of the greenhouse gases in the entire world are from, can anyone tell me? Shout it out if you know. Cows, yeah, burps and farts from cows. Sick. We're breathing it all in together. Burps and farts, methane in the air. So 1/3 of all the methane in the world is from cattle, burps and farts, basically. And we created this product, which I'm holding in my hand, looking very cool on the Nerdy magazine, called Asparagopsis. And that product that I'm holding has the potential to reduce methane in livestock by 90%. So it's pretty amazing. Each cow burps or farts 100 to 120 kilos of methane per year per animal. So if we can radically reduce methane emissions in livestock, we've got a really great lever to positively affect healing country and protecting nature and biodiversity. Another thing I'm involved in, these are some of my life highlights on a page, so I hope they're impressive to you. They are to me. The guy with the beard, does anyone know who that is? Costa, yeah, he's from Gardening Australia. So I do lots of work on the ground in permaculture and gardening. And what we were doing was talking about the need to, in the right way, bring together knowledge systems for gardening. We know that our mob have been managing country and doing gardening and having Indigenous land management for 65,000 years or more. And the new way of gardening is bringing in posies and flowers and vegetables from the UK and trying to plant them here in Australia. And sometimes that's great because you get cos lettuce on your sandwich. And sometimes that means that the country that's here doesn't actually enjoy having lettuce planted in it. So we were talking about working out ways that we can have better Indigenous knowledge and Western science transfer for permaculture to do things the right way. So that was pretty cool. And he's got the best beard I've ever seen in my life. So that's also nice. Down the bottom was the Australian of the Year Awards 2 years ago, where I met Peter. 2 years ago? 1 year ago. 1 year ago. And this is AIMhi. Has anyone met AIMhi before? She's an incredible educator who does so much within the Yolngu community in terms of dual language resources, and she's just an amazing woman. And then we have Dr. Tom, who works in health, and Nayara, who is an incredible Broadway opera singer who's currently in London at the School of Music doing amazing things. So this was all mob together being awarded and recognised, as well as AIMhi's brother at the time. So that was a pretty cool life highlight too. My growing up, I'm not from Darwin, but half my family are from here. So if you know the Lufats or the Thai family, that's my family. I've got my mum's surname because I grew up with a single mum without meeting my dad until I was 17. But I know him now and I'm living at his place right now. For this week only, I have my own house. I don't live with my dad anymore. Thank God, because I'm 30. I grew up on a place called Palm Island. I was conceived here. This is where I was made. So, but I grew up on Palm Island. Does anyone know where that is? Townsville, yeah, off the coast of Townsville. And Palm Island was a place that the Australian government took Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from the mainland and displaced them there for committing small crimes back in the 90s, which I'm looking at the audience. You guys are born in the 2000s, aren't you? At the back? Yeah, cool. That's good. When I lived up there, there was a death in custody, and the community, as a result of that, smashed down the police station. So it was a place that was beautiful and full of nature and had a lot of interesting things, with the Australian government incorrectly overlaying cultural law and our way of knowing, being and doing. So growing up in that place was one of the most incredible times of my life. I remember it really fondly, being able to ride bareback horses around the island and slide down waterfalls and go to school. My school, which you can see the uniform is the Aboriginal flag, was an old mission school that was set up by Catholic nuns. So we weren't allowed to practice culture or language at the school, but it was moving towards being a more Western, a more normal, not mission school, Western institution by the time I got there. So it's an interesting way to grow up, right? I'm a Karaeg woman, so I'm not from Palm Island. My mob also aren't Larrakia, so I'm not from here. My mob are from Wyburn in the Torres Strait, and our family was removed off of our island about 5 generations ago and moved across to Darwin. So we've been here for 5 generations now. And I think this shows the way that our families and connections move and evolve and change. And today, I take a lot of pride in knowing that I'm relearning my language of Kalaalleq, that I don't know everything, that I don't represent the languages or the knowledges of all Indigenous people or pretend to act like I know anything specific about a mob or speak on behalf of anyone, that I can operate in my lane as a First Nations woman and lift up the voices of other First Nations people in the work that I do to make sure that things are done the right way, and that the people who are on the ground who need their voices heard are getting the microphones, not speaking on behalf of others, which is something that our government and our systems need to do a much better job of. So my inspiration began early. I grew up surrounded by salt water and coral reefs, and I saw how tides and community shaped our lives and how climate change was altering both of those things. If we didn't use our resources equitably in community, we would run out of resources. The barge only came once a week. So if you don't share it across the community, you run out of stuff. And a lot of gauzes and medical supplies would run out at the hospital because of that. In my life, I've seen, when I was 15, I sailed from Melbourne to Hobart on this ship called the One and All, which was a program for at-risk youth, which I think I got put on there because of my indigeneity. But I had a great time and it was really fun. And I went diving in Tasmania, and I dived and saw this sea star called the Derwent Sea Star. By the time I turned 22, the Derwent Sea Star was claimed as the first marine animal extinction in Australia. Now I live in Adelaide, and we're experiencing an algal bloom, which is a huge, it's like a massive bushfire, but in the ocean. And it's something that's been caused from climate change. So I realized across my life, after studying science, that I couldn't just be a scientist and just do the research part. I also needed to be an advocate. I saw that there weren't many women in the rooms that I was in. There were definitely not many First Nations people, if any, and there was no equity lens to the conversations that we were having. So finding a voice in science and storytelling, kind of trying to bring in a mix of making the stories that I tell exciting and more approachable, or a way to bring in information that's exciting for young people or for different communities, has been a really important part of my life. Bridging in Western science and traditional knowledge. When I studied a science degree, I saw very early that none of the Indigenous land management techniques or knowledges that I grew up with were in the curriculum that I was learning. It was all very UK-based pastoralist or US conservation techniques, without any acknowledgement that we have been managing country here for 65,000 years, and that the massive changes in country and climate are only recent and new, not from our mobs. So it's been an important part of trying to change that journey. And I guess for the high school mob and high school students that are in here, I said before about not knowing what I wanted to do when I finished school. I was always interested in science. I was the kid at school, bit of a freak, who would like grow tadpoles into frogs. That was me. When I was in year 1, I bought in a pair of lungs and a heart and blew it up in front of everyone because I thought that was really cool. Looking back, probably not the best like social experiment, but it showed that I was really into science. So I was always curious about the natural world and always curious about how things worked. I was also the why kid that now as an adult, I see them and I'm like, God damn, you know, like why, but why, but why? That was me. So I've always been a keen learner and always been interested in science, but didn't really know where to direct my energy. When I finished high school, I started in physiotherapy. I did it for 6 months and dropped out and started working at a gym as a personal trainer. I really liked learning about health and well-being and how people could look after themselves, but I wasn't that into physics and biophysics, sorry. So I swapped degrees and worked for a while, and then I started studying veterinary medicine. So I've translated that love of science and animals and health and well-being into vet school. I studied vet for 4 years, enjoyed what I was doing, but was really interested in marine animals and wildlife and could see that every animal that came in was a product of the environment that it came from, and that we were actively destroying habitat, putting more microplastics, eutrophication and nitrification, which are way too big words. That's basically like crap running off into the water that we don't need in there, affecting the environment. So all of these things are happening. Animals are running out of food, their habitat's being destroyed, and we're not regenerating or giving back to country. So I swapped degrees into wildlife conservation biology. And finally, after 7 years, I got a degree. Thank you. Took me a while. I think looking back, the advice that I'd give about that is how diverse your interests and knowledge can be, and how important it is to go and get experience and learn who you are, more than just enrolling in things because you think it's the right thing to do, or that you should enroll in something because you've just finished. Learning about yourself, discovering what lights you up and makes you passionate, and what you really care about is so important. I've now found a passion in my work that makes me so excited that I am doing it all the time, which has got a mix of positive and negative things. But it's this big fire or inspiration, right? Caring for country and looking after mob are two things that I care the most about above all else. If we don't look after country, or if we become a product of country. So if country's sick, we get sick. And that keeps that fire burning to do good work and look after and sustain myself. So I learned throughout my career so far that science gives us data, but culture gives us direction and a different lens. And that advocacy isn't just about volume, it's about values. So I use storytelling in many ways through podcasts and panels and national campaigns to remind people that country is not a commodity, it's kin. Does anyone know Al Gore? He's getting a bit outdated if you're in high school. He's in a South Park episode, but more importantly than that, he was the Vice President of America not that long ago, and he is an incredible climate advocate. So I applied for a program in my early 20s. He's right down the front in the suit, well, in one of the suits, and he runs this thing called the Climate Reality Project, where he travels around the world and trains people for free to communicate climate science and understand climate change. So if you're interested, if you're a bit of a nerd like me, or maybe you're not a nerd, but you're interested in learning, the Climate Reality Project, you get free training to be able to understand this stuff, and he still runs it today. It's now run by a network of volunteers who have done the program. Cool. My heritage shapes everything that I do, and although I didn't grow up in my own direct country or with a relationship to my dad until much later in life, I always grew up being accepted as an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander woman as a young person in my family, and learning culture through other communities. We travelled all over Australia as a young person. So rural and remote Australia was mostly where I grew up after Palm Island. I knew that and learned from elders within the communities that I lived in that our ancestors read tides and stars and currents as calendars, and that that's a very different way of understanding the world than what I was taught in school. I also learned that leadership wasn't about control, it was about care, and that the loudest voice in the room isn't always the one that should actually be listened to. collective decision-making in our communities was always guided by custodianship, and there's this messaging that comes through about intergenerational responsibility. What we take, we need to give back, and that leadership needs to be listening to our environment, to elders, to others within our community, and to the youth, how important it is to understand the perspectives of young people and what you care about. So this is the Aboriginal STEM Congress that was from last year, where there were 1,500 students from all across South Australia coming together to learn about science, technology, engineering and maths. And our next generation, our young people, already know the solutions, a lot of the solutions, and you definitely understand the problems of the world at the moment. And what our young people need is not permission, but platforms, the empowerment to be able to have your voice heard, to be able to give into the community, and to be able to listen to with deep respect. So I've been mentoring young women in STEM, specifically young Indigenous women in STEM, for about 8 years now, co-designing and spending time mentoring and looking after young mob to make sure that we've got empowerment and our future leaders in this space. Leadership has to be inclusive, and our politicians and government systems need to be inclusive. They're not at the moment, but I can see a strong light ahead of the way that things are coming, understanding the importance and the value of people who make decisions about the Australian population actually reflecting the diversity of the people on the ground who the decisions are being made for. Women now make up 34% of the STEM workforce in Australia, and in 2016 it was 28%. So although it's not amazing, it is trending upward, and Indigenous representation in that is less than 1%. So we've got a long way to go. Inclusive leadership has to be proper, right way, co-design, bringing in knowledge systems in the right way, focusing on a lot of different ways of actually empowering voices, not just as tokenism of having a seat at the table, but actually having the ability to make decisions and have your voice heard properly. So the next decade will determine whether our children will inhabit a livable planet. We have a lot of big global problems, and I said that we'd touch on some of the bad stuff, but it will only be a light touch because you already know all this already. We are taking far more from our environment and our world and our people than is sustainable. We have 10 massive challenges that shape our climate future. That includes emerging pathogens such as COVID, resource security, so the growing populations that we have across the world strain our access to clean water, energy, and food and air. We have unsustainable extraction. So basically we take from systems that are a finite resource, so nature, and don't give anything back to them. We have agricultural decline. So we've got about 60 years of good topsoil left in Australia before we're in some deep strife. So that's not that far away. That's within all of our lives, a lot of our lifetime, sorry. We've got massive inequality where wealth and emission imbalances deepen the global divides that we have and instability, which then adds into civil disruption and war and makes that more intensified. Social conflicts, displacement, climate crises. The Australian government has started sponsoring Pacific Islanders from Tuvalu and Kiribati to be able to relocate to Australia because their islands are sinking underwater, which is a pretty wild time. That's already happening. I met one of our first climate refugees in Adelaide 3 days ago. And the island that is my homeland is also 1 metre above sea level. So that's going to be something that we see in our lifetime, is a lot more climate refugees. How do we work with being able to look after these people and make sure they have everything they need to thrive? So there's a lot of stuff going on, right? There's a lot of things, but there always has been. Every era, every generation of human beings have looked at the state of the history of the social constructs that they're in and gone, this isn't the best and it could always be better. So despite these big overarching problems, they're things that have always been there. Some are improving and some are getting better and some are trending worse. One of the big problems that we have in Australia is this big biodiversity loss. We actually lead the world in mammal extinctions at the moment. And we have cultural erosion of colonization with languages and stories being taken away and stolen from people and country. So we need to think about what we can do in our circle of influence, because when we look back at this, it's very overwhelming, right? We can't solve this all by sitting down in a room together and having a yarn. So we need to think about what we can do. What can we influence? Where do we really care? And how can we use this one wild and precious life to do our most to impact something that we're passionate about? So our sea levels are rising, but so are we. There's hope, and in science, we're seeing the rapid decarbonisation of technologies, Indigenous fire management, revitalising biodiversity and knowledge transfer. We're seeing incredible youth climate movements, redefining leadership. We're seeing incredible things with decarbonised systems, whole cities like Canberra and Adelaide's nearly there being powered by renewable energy, having electrified transport and circular manufacturing. So systems that, instead of just taking from the resource, turn around to be able to regenerate, take from and regenerate again. We have nature positive economies valuing ecosystem services, restoring land and oceans at scale, like our mangrove systems or our seagrass beds, and embedding traditional knowledge in environmental management in the right way. We're seeing more inclusive governance where Indigenous leadership, local communities are more central to decision making. We're seeing wellbeing metrics over GDP where we measure our national success through health, equity and environmental resilience coming together. We're seeing lots of changes in the way that we do collaboration rather than siloing our work for just being health and just being agriculture, that we're looking at things more holistically. Thank goodness. We're seeing the lens that things are interconnected and they do relate together, and that the power of working together is so important. We're seeing real-time data and AI modelling, predictive systems tracking climate extremes, being able to manage country utilising drone systems. We're seeing disease emergence at unprecedented scales, but we're also seeing the science and the medicine to back that, to control it faster than ever, with new vaccines and new medicine coming together. We're seeing a shift from observation and watching environmental decline to restoration and giving back to these systems, and open science and knowledge sovereignty and working out whose knowledge is what and doing things in the right way. So there's a lot that still needs to change, and systems need to embed Indigenous governance, not just consultation with our communities. Science has to partner with traditional knowledge, not just extract from it and take from it and profit from it. And leadership must shift from for to with. And these are some of my, I mean, it looks pretty grim when you put it in boxes. They're big scale things. There's a lot of roots that come under each of these things, but this is how I see the future of the world and the future that I'd like to contribute to, and what I'd like to say by 2050, that we have meaningful relationships, that we listen to one another, that we recognise LORE as much as we recognise Australian LAW, that we have regenerative systems, and that we continue to build on this capacity. This is the way things are going, from extraction to regeneration, competition to collaboration, short-term profit to long-term purpose, from only focusing on building the tech to actually bringing in the tech with cultural wisdom, from inequality to empowering communities with justice and equity and making sure that voices are heard, remunerated, and are empowered in the right way, from disconnection and not understanding each other or feeling out of the system with social media or a lack of connection within young people, to building relationships and building intergenerational knowledge systems again. Imagine a world where climate decisions are guided by custodians of 60,000 years of ecological knowledge, where conservation is measured not just by hectares protected, but by communities thriving. That's the future that we're building at the moment, even despite all of these big complex issues that are happening. One tide, one story, one relationship built at a time. These are three of my role models. The lady on the left, Dr. Jane Goodall, passed away a couple of days ago. She's had this incredible life for empowering women in science and hope into young people. one of her biggest parts of her story was about making sure that youth know that they matter, that you're so important, and that every person has a role to play. The person next to her is Uncle Moogie Sumner. He's a Kaurna Ngarrindjeri elder down in South Australia, and he has walked along the entire Murray-Darling system singing in the rain with a big community of people where thousands of mob joined him to sing in the rain and revitalise an old cultural practice to talk about nature revitalisation and biodiversity loss. And then talking to, me sitting chatting to the man with the microphone is Dr. Bob Brown, who was a medical doctor and is now an incredible activist. He's done amazing things for nature and biodiversity. He was the founder of Bush Heritage, which is the company that I now work for. He was a Greens minister, and he was also an incredible activist for the rights of LGBTQIA+ people. So these are 3 questions that I asked myself. I'm nearly done. If you want to shake your hands around, that's totally cool. I get it. These are the questions that I ask myself when I get stressed out in the world. How do I honor my younger self, this little girl with no roofs, no ceilings, no limitations to her ambitions or the hopes that she had? How do I bring in that understanding that the sky is not the limit? It's actually the universe that is beyond the sky. There's stars and other planets and other places we can go, and we need to think about things more broadly without going, we tried that 10 years ago and it actually didn't work. Bringing in that understanding of the world. How do I honor my ancestors and make sure that their knowledge and their lives and all of the legacy that they've built to allow me to have a microphone and be standing here today, how do I honor that deep time and those knowledge systems and make sure that I look after mob first? And how do I honor future generations and make sure that there is a livable, better planet for the people beyond my life? And the last one is new. It's how I care for and rejuvenate myself to maintain this energy for life. Life is a marathon, not a sprint. If we're lucky enough to age and live that long, which aging is a privilege, trust me, with all the greys in my hair, that's what I'm telling my hairdresser at the moment. It's a privilege. I'm just aging and getting more experience. Looking after yourself is so important. Your mental well-being, your physical health, eating the right food, treating your body like the beautiful temple that it is. We're so lucky to have a life. There are so many parts of science that say that you shouldn't be born. So many things that could go wrong along the way. And for some reason, we've been gifted the opportunity to have a body, but to also have a conscious mind that can make decisions and look after each other. So look after it, or it won't look after you. The last thing that I just wanted to make sure that I bang in is that you're all so valuable. And if that's the only thing that you take away from today, remember to let other people in your life know how much their life and voice matters. I wish that people had told other people that I knew in my life who have now passed how important that they were and how much what they choose to do with their life or what they don't do with their life impacts communities and impacts other people and impacts themselves. You're all important. You're all valuable. You're all diverse and beautiful, just like nature. And that's what we need in this world. So Kaima Eso, with lots of love and many thanks. I'll see you on the panel in like 2 minutes. Shake your hands around and thanks so much for listening.
I think we've got to give another round of applause. That was incredible and so powerful. And I got goosebumps like 3 times. Thank you so much for that. We now have the opportunity to hear from some local, emerging and established leaders in health, science and community as part of our panel discussion. This is your chance to think about any questions that you might have for our panelists or for Tiahni, as we'll have the opportunity to ask these following the panel discussion. For our panelists, I'd like to invite you to come up and take a seat in our panel chairs. You can do that too, Tiahni. I am delighted to introduce you to, and give a little wave when I say your name too, guys, Dr. Josie Povey. who's a senior research fellow at Menzies with our mental health team. We've got Jahdai Vigona, who's a co-founder of the 1% program and a First Nations community leader. Professor Heidi Smith-Vaughan, microbiologist and principal research fellow here at Menzies, as well as the founder of Menzies HealthLAB and co-lead of the Menzies Ramashotti Centre. And Peter Susanto, who is an NT medical student, UNICEF Young Ambassador and community volunteer. We're delighted to have Tiahni to facilitate this discussion, which will be focused on how young people across cultures and disciplines are leading the way to a fairer, healthier, and more sustainable future, and to inspire you to think about how you can help contribute to this change. Thank you, Tiahni. Over to you. Thanks so much, Jade. Is this working? You should be on. Hello. You can hear me okay? Yeah? Hold it right up.
Sure, thank you. Hello, haha. So, some pretty incredible humans on this panel. Imposter syndrome over here. Some incredible people who have had amazing impact and will continue to across their lifetimes. I feel very lucky to sit here with the four of you, so thanks for being here. They're here to shape the stories behind their journeys and how they became the inspiring forces that they are driving change today. I'd like you to all introduce yourselves, maybe about 2 minutes each, if that's okay. And maybe if we start down the end.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Smith-Vaughan, but I'd like to start by saying thanks, Tiahni. That was a really amazing speech and really, really inspiring. Thank you. And it's really hard to follow you after all that. And so I've been a researcher at Menzies for the past 35 years. And I also look after the PhD students and Master by Research students, and set up HealthLAB, which is a hands-on health promotion program which travels around the territory. We set this up about 11 years ago. And really was to work with young people and around preconception health. But it turned out that everybody loved HealthLAB, so we've had to expand HealthLAB to be for everybody. And recently it's expanded to SHELab as well, which focuses on women's and girls' health promotion. And very recently we've gone international with translating the program to Hilisadaval in Timor-Leste. And the other thing that I do is a co-lead of the Menzies Ramashotti Centre, which focuses on youth, primarily First Nations youth, and supporting them into health training and health pathways. And my passion really is serving the community, and primarily youth, as well as those who have had the fewest opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi. And thank you, Tiahni. That was amazing, really inspiring, and some really wonderful messages coming through as well. So my name is Josie Povey. I work here at Menzies and have done for about 10 years. I work in the Stay Strong team, which is a team focused on mental health research. My PhD actually focused on co-designing resources with young people to increase their access to help around mental health and wellbeing. And I've had the privilege of working with many young people across the territory in remote communities and in town as well. And I guess my passion really started, I am a mental health clinician, and I worked for the Department of Health prior to coming to Menzies, and worked with people in community, often with chronic mental illnesses. So I guess my passion is really about promoting mental health for young people. We know that mental health can emerge when people are young, and if we can intervene early and we can help them get the help that they need at that point, we can really impact the trajectory of their life. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, everybody. So my name is Jahdai Vigona. For those of you who don't know me, it's good to be here back at Menzies School of Health Research, where I started my journey actually into this space. So thank you all for having me back here, and it's good to see such beautiful familiar faces in the crowd. Also honoured to be on the panel with such beautiful people and prestige level people. The 2024 NT Young Australian, 2025 SA 24, 2024, and the 2023 NT Young Australian. So it's good to see a really high profile people in the room. Yeah, give it up. So, yeah, I grew up here. I'm a local Darwin boy. I'm 24 years of age now, so I'm hitting that uncle status from the young people who tell me now. But what I'm passionate about is really the same as everyone here in this room. It's about serving others and giving back to community. And I really do that in the way that through my lived experience, I guess, and starting off and finding my passion here at Menzies with people such as Josie, who's allowed me to have a platform and have a voice, and opportunities like that has led me to where I am today. And what I do now is I'm the current co-founder of the 1% program. It's an initiative myself and my cousin Dante started in 2023. It's about connecting young people to positive mentors, working on building resilience and better lifestyle choices. And I'll share a little bit more about that in the discussion later today, but thank you all for having me.
My name's Peter Susanto. I'm 18 years old and I am a second year Doctor of Medicine student at Flinders NT. A bit about me. I am very fortunate to have grown up here in Darwin, just like Jahdai, and growing up here has given me, with, my mum's over there, my sister Eva, with their support and the way that they're raising, growing up here in Darwin, it's given me that understanding of how, we're all human. We all deserve to live healthy and thriving lives where we can help contribute to this world. And so I'm involved with quite a bit of community advocacy. For example, currently I'm a UNICEF Australia Young Ambassador. I'm also on the Anti-Youth Roundtable and the medical student representative for the Australian Medical Association Anti-Council. I had my graduation ceremony in May this year from my Bachelor of Clinical Sciences. I was really honored to get the university medal for achieving a perfect GPA, which is really cool. And I think I'm the sort of person who really likes to connect kind of academic achievement, but also connect it with community impact. So with my sister Eva, every weekend evening, Saturdays at Cullen Bay and Sundays at Nightcliffe Foreshore, we fundraise for a different charity each year by selling our grandma's delicious Indonesian snacks and desserts from East Java originally. This year, we're raising money for the Melanoma Institute to help one of the 2024 Australians of the Year, Professor Richard Scolia. And overall, we've raised over $10,000, and I'll tell you a bit more about the other things that I do later on.
Wow, a massive round of applause for our incredible panel. Pretty incredible people, hey? And I now have this box. This is fun. Look at this. How amazing. Tech. Microphones in a box. So today we're talking about supporting and elevating the next generation in research and leadership. So I'm going to start with a question for Heidi. Heidi, why is it important to support and raise up the next generation coming through research?
Well, Tiahni, the youth are our future, really, as Sian put it so beautifully before. And as you described earlier, our youth are going to be inheriting some really big challenges, and it's important for us to set them up well to be able to face these challenges. And really closer to home, across research and across the health and science sectors more broadly, we're always looking to attract skilled people from down south, and some come and stay, which is great, but many don't. And then on the other hand, we have territory youth, and some years only 50% of those youth are finishing high school, going into unskilled work, or else we have high unemployment across communities, unfortunately, youth. And so we shouldn't have this disparity. And so we are working with collaborators across the sector to focus on youth and to focus on supporting them into getting skilled so that they can take these jobs. And for decades at Menzies, we've shown that if you open up the doors of opportunity, youth come running. It's what we need to be doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Heidi. Josie, you've been involved in supporting emerging researchers and youth as well. How have you facilitated that support that Heidi touched on within your own projects?
Tiahni, I think you nailed it before where you said leadership is care. And I think we have incredible humans that come into our life, particularly young people. And, you know, in mental health research, we talk about strengths-based approaches. And I think every young person has attributes, they have skills, they have, you know, knowledge that we don't have that can be tapped into to improve the way in which, particularly mental health services in my case, are delivered, the way in which we can reach young people and get them where they need to be. So I really think that caring for people who come into our lives and particularly focusing on their strengths is the way to do that.
Thank you. So you're all aware that you're important now, right? Does everyone know that? Really valuable, really important, no matter what your age is or where you come from. That's echoing. Cool. Couple of nods. If not, we're going to keep drilling it into you, how important you all are. Jahdai, you've experienced Menzies as a trainee. Tell us about your experience with Menzies. They're all in the room, but you can be honest with us. And the pathway it led you to now with all the deadly work that you've been doing, and how you found and have maintained your voice in these conversations.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Tiahni. I think Menzies, my experience at Menzies was just a blast. I had so much fun. And it was because
great promo.
Well, I think I have more fun than work being done or what. Nah, but it just, because I was saying to Peter before, as a young person, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I could have just got a job at Domino's or like a lot of my other friends got a trade of some sorts. But I wanted to do something. To me, I knew I wanted something with meaning and a bit of seeing the results of what I was working towards. And I didn't know what that was. And then I saw the opportunity working with Josie Povey's team, working on a Tiwi mental health literacy resource so that people in country can actually talk to each other in mental health in their own traditional language. Because Tiwi and Aboriginal language, we don't have words like depression and anxiety and terminologies that are real technical. So how do we have these conversations in a more traditional way? And so I saw that and I was, well, this project seems like it's speaking to me. I'm young, I'm Tiwi Islands and I'm passionate and I wanted to do something and I was unemployed, I needed money. So I wanted it was a great job opportunity. And from there on, it was just I didn't know. My point is I didn't know what I could do in this space. You think of mental health, you think of health, you just think of all these like nurses and doctors and stuff and all these like rooms and stuff, but there's so much more to it, and the experience and the opportunities, the people that I met, the places that I've been to. If it wasn't for having that opportunity, because I always thought I had a bit of a voice, but having someone like Josie, and she hates this attention, but I really do thank this woman so much for all of my success and all of the opportunities I've been able to do, because she started by giving me that opportunity. And that's all it takes for a young person like yourself sitting there. Is sometimes you don't know, but if someone like the Josies of the world, hey, my old maths teacher, how are you? So you're staring at me like, you weren't good in my class. But at the same time, if it wasn't for people like that who could see what they see in you, I would have never been able to do what I do today. So it's those people in the world who give you a voice and a platform. And then, as you said beautifully before, is just trying the experience. Once you learn the experiences, you know what you're passionate about. I was always passionate about serving people, giving back to my mob and my community. I didn't know how I could do that. Health research allowed me to find a way I can do that in my own sort of way. And I'm a little bit neurodivergent myself, so maybe the secret is having ADHD, like you can do so many things and spin so many plates and so many projects. And, that's a beautiful lesson itself. You got to own those, embrace those things about yourself, use it to your own strength. And yeah, that's long story short, I guess. Yeah.
Love that. Round of applause. There's this beautiful poem by Maya Angelou, and she talks about being the rainbow in someone else's cloud. And Josie, it sounds like you've been a rainbow in the cloud. In life, no matter who you are, you will get clouds that suck, that are not good, hard things in your life that come up. No matter your privilege or where you come from, everyone experiences hardship. There will be clouds. That is, there's like a Buddhist terminology around that life is suffering, which is pretty bleak. But there will always be clouds, no matter who you are, that come into your life. Focusing on the rainbows, the people like Josie, the people that lift you up, the teachers, the mentors, the family members, the cousins, the friendships that you have that are the rainbows in them is such an important key to having a good and full life. We could focus just on the clouds if we wanted to, but let's make a decision. There's a pact. You've made a pact here now. We're going to focus on the rainbows to empower us and to lift up our voices and to use that to our advantage. Peter, I'm going to come to you. Looking ahead, what's next for you? I mean, you're 18, you've nearly finished medicine, which is just insanely clever of you. Well done, with a full GDP. That's wild. What's next for you, and what do you think is important when it comes to raising your voice?
Well, I'll start by saying I have exactly 11 days to make a whole poster and presentation for the HEAL 2025 conference, because I'm also doing research with Menzies. Shout out to Professor Supriya Matthew and Dr. Zubair Ratan, who are my supervisors. They've been really supportive of me. But yeah, I've got to smash that through right now. We're getting through all our data, collecting it all, doing our literature reviews and everything. But in terms of the more medium term, when we're talking about opportunities and creating your own opportunities, I'm really excited to be starting on my journey of having a tutoring firm. So for everyone here, Super Education NT, superaed.com.au. I've just started it, like in the past week. I did all my business registrations and made my own website and domains and everything. The reason why I bring this up is that I've been doing like private tutoring since year 9 in 2018 when I was like 12 years old or 11. And in that, I've been able to help so many students who, some of them who had zero confidence in themselves, be able to get confident, be able to really have that interest in studying and learning, which hopefully everyone in the back here has. And I'd like to expand that journey and now be able to help even more people. Over the past 4 years since graduating high school, I've been working really hard on writing my own resources and my own course for Year 12 mathematical methods for NTCET and the VCE. And so I'm really excited and hope some of you maybe can join in that journey. And in the long term, my sister Eve and I would like to start some mobile clinic to help remote communities when we've become doctors, which is still in a very long time. I've also got an interest in executive management of health services, because I know so many doctors who are really great, and yet often they're under poor leadership, which means that they're not able to fully achieve their entire potential. So in terms of what I guess keeps my voice going, it's that knowledge that, if I just put in more effort, then I'll get more opportunities and then I'll be able to help even more people. That's the core of it.
Amazing. So if you want to be as smart as Peter, he can train you. I also realized I said GDP. I meant GPA. That shows the world that I've been in lately. Your grade point average is what I meant. Peter, you have this insatiable desire to support community in so many ways. I know that you study full-time and that you and your sister fundraise through selling food, and you work and you tutor and you work for Menzies and you do all this extra stuff. How do you keep this passion and all of this balance? Surely there are days where you just can't be bothered. And I'm guessing because of how high your GPA is that you're often quite hard on yourself. How do you hold all of that?
I think it's about finding balance. I've said or thought of it before that it's almost like a waiter working in, especially those Asian restaurants, where you've got like 7 or 8 different plates and you have to balance them. And it's about finding that balance. So I do exercise. You all know how important physical activity is to, having a healthy lifestyle and then being more productive. So I swim in the mornings at morning training, and I do badminton training, which is really important. And I also, when there's barriers or challenges that I come up with, the first person I go to, or the first people I go to, is my family. So family or having a support network is so important to being able to achieve your dreams, and then also overcoming those challenges when you receive them.
Awesome, thank you. And for those who've got funny family relationships, there are incredible programs and mentors and people that you can lean on outside of your family if that's something that you need to.
Make your own family.
Yeah, well, I won't go into my personal life, but I have an amazing friendship group that I lean on all the time for support. So let's go back to Josie and Heidi for a two-way reflection. Josie and Heidi, what have you learned in your journey working with and elevating youth? Like the wins that you've had, how you've elevated them, and what you've gained or how it feels to be involved with young people?
I specifically told Jahdai not to make me cry. So he hasn't learned that lesson yet. In terms of what my experience of with young people is, they're experts in their own life, and they're often experts in their friends' lives as well. And I think we can learn so much from that. I think that they bring a totally different lens to a situation. They don't always tell you what you want to hear, and that's actually a good thing. I think it's a refreshing approach to research, approach to health delivery, approach to the way in which we describe things and elevate them. And I think we've also got to know when to step aside and when to know, let them fly and be able to be there for them and be that support that they need, but to actually elevate their voice, to give them opportunities to do so. And I think it can only make the work that we do and the world that we have a better place. So.
Thanks, Josie. Heidi?
I completely agree with Josie. And working with youth is, working with anyone really, is very much a reciprocal thing. We're teaching them, they're teaching us, and we need to always listen carefully. And I guess also working with youth, I thought that the best way that we could support youth coming through Menzies, for example, is to remove those hurdles. And some would need, for example, a scholarship or some tutoring or, just general wraparound support. And of course, that's important. That's absolutely critical. But what I've come to learn is that one of the most important things is to believe in them. And so we believe in them and we believe in them and we believe in them until they start believing themselves. And that's when the change happens.
Again, you're all very important people. I guess you've both had incredible careers and impact in this space as well. What hasn't worked? What have been the dud moves, or what are the things that you would say, I don't recommend doing that? Sorry. Or what we need to do differently?
I think, we all come to work with expectations at times. And I think with young people, particularly, young people have complex lives. And your priorities aren't necessarily their priorities. And being able to meet them where they're at on any given day, with what's happening in their lives and what's going on, and be able to have a moment to acknowledge that and to work with that and to, reset the priorities for that day or for that week or whatever's going on. I also think that workplaces, can be places for health, particularly for young people. And I think, if we can, that workplaces are a public health intervention. And I think that particularly for young people, if we can create safe workplaces for young people, create workplaces where they have access to mentors, they have access to help, they have access to that, and that's prioritised, then I think, they're going to achieve good things.
Thank you.
And to add to that, in the workplace, we can also create peer support groups. And that's worked really well by having a number of youth working together, sitting together, going through the same things at the same time, being able to celebrate together those wins and support one another through these times.
Thanks, Heidi. I'm going to turn to the fellas. How have you overcome barriers to find solutions to the problems that you've seen? I feel like for a lot of us, we identify that there's something wrong as part of the drive that we have for life. And I guess both being local NT crew, what your thoughts are about opportunities for our NT young mob and how we can create them or do better in that space as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think for me is being open to always learning, but learning in a way that's true to your path. You know, like I think you've touched on it before about you're conditioned to have a mediocre way of doing something, and this is the way you do it. You get to this stage, you're meant to have this, but that's, as we heard, life is not linear. So it's about always being open to learning new things, but what is true to you, not listening to all the external voices. I mean, it's always good to have that, and your mentors are there for that, but always be true to that voice inside and what feels right to you, and always listen to that. And I also think that, there's so many opportunities nowadays, especially for young people. But there are some young people who don't have those opportunities or access or the right mentors around them. And so sometimes it is about creating your own opportunities where you can as well, and whatever that looks like to you,
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with what Jahdai has just said. And to add to that, I always say we have to have the courage to take action in our own communities, because otherwise no one else is going to do it for us. In terms of like the barriers and challenges, often we have our own doubts, we might lack time, or we might not even know, who we can contact or who can help us get started. So what I say about that is it's always best to try to start small. And if you have an idea and a solution to a problem, then just start doing it. If it doesn't work the first time, keep trying and keep trying to contact different people who might give you a platform that will enable you to finally succeed. So I'll give an example. When was it? Like end of 2023, I found out that a lot of young people were falling through the cracks in the oral health system in the Northern Territory. We're all meant to get free oral health services if we're under 18 and NT residents, but a lot weren't getting it because you needed to be registered with a school. So people who, for example, were disengaged from school or were being homeschooled or were doing a trade even, weren't able to get these oral health services. Now, I don't know, well, I do now, but I didn't know like who was the health minister at the time or like who could I contact about it. But I just asked the staff at the kind of health service in Casuarina, and they said you could write a sort of a suggestion in our feedback box. And so I did that, and then I was able to get that changed just through putting in that effort and asking those people and writing a short letter.
Amazing. The power of writing a letter. Sometimes you feel like your voice doesn't matter or that one small action won't make a difference. And I can't reiterate enough how many little actions actually drive big changes. All little drops make up the entire ocean or entire river systems. So pretty cool thing to think about. I want to leave on this part of the panel before we open up to the audience, just like the shortest possible version of what gives you optimism and hope for the future. If there's like a one-liner or a thought that you're like, this is the thing that I want to leave with the people in the audience today.
I guess in a world where capitalism and individualism is promoted, I see a lot of youth coming through who are driving in the opposite direction, and they're focusing on social justice, climate justice, and community. And these are our future leaders, and this gives me a lot of hope for our future.
Awesome.
I have a 12 and 10-year-old at home, and they give me hope. They are fresh, they have new ideas, they sometimes don't listen, but them and their friends are far beyond where I think I was at that age, in terms of inclusivity, in terms of, what's right in this world, in terms of strong values. So I have a lot of hope.
Yeah, my hope would be coming from the work that I'm seeing on the ground from the young people. Got some young people in the room that I've even worked close with, and just seeing how they are stepping. They do want to see change, and they don't want to pass this on to the next generation. So I love how enthusiastic they are about looking after their health. Having more conversations around mental health is really what we're seeing now. And generations ago, that wasn't even a thing, So there's good hope there. And the thing I'd like to leave is a model called cause and effect. And it's that, as a young person, you think everything's happening, not even as a young person, as people, we think everything's happening to us, like, oh, the world's coming at me. But it's like everything is happening for you, and you just got to find that reason for you. And once you change that little mindset, you have a bit more control and power over gaining that control back over your life in whatever circumstance you're in. So just find what it is, the higher purpose.
I think the young people of today are the generation that is the most adaptable and the most technologically savvy ever in the history of the entire world. And that's really exciting and gives me a lot of hope. What older people can do, to leave my final message, is to provide us with that support to form genuine connections and a culture of action in this extremely fragmented digital world.
Love that. We've got the time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience. And if you ask a question, I get to throw this to you and you get to catch it and talk into it. Yeah. Does anyone have a question they'd like to ask of our wonderful panelists? Yeah. Thank goodness. I'm glad it wasn't at the back.
Yeah, look, thanks. My name is Brian O'Gallagher. I'm the MLA for Karama. I'm also the Assistant Minister for Health. It's been really inspiring being here. Last night I was at the Mental Health Awards, which were fantastic. But look, as a local member, and I pick up on your point, ageing is a privilege. Ageing is a privilege. One of the most confronting things I had happen last week, I had some constituents come in, mother and father, they're Indigenous constituents. I won't go into too much. But the reality was their young son committed suicide. And that was very confronting. But what I want to know, youth suicide is a problem going forward, and it may be related to technologies and disconnection and everything like that. But what are your views on how can we tackle this? Because this is the loss of human capital going forward. This is where the world is missing out on the future of these wonderful people. And I know it's been around for history, but what are your views, and particularly the younger people's views of what do you believe we could do to address this really important issue?
It's a big question, hey, but I think I can only speak to my experience. The reason why we created the 1% program, from my experience in health research and program design, but working in suicide prevention, is there's a simple thing, a simple conversation can save a life. You know, for men, the statistics show that we don't like to engage with mental health professional services, let alone talking about those things. So we need to find a more meaningful way for men, especially young men, to talk about these problems. Men like to do things shoulder to shoulder, whether that's playing golf, fixing a car, even sometimes having a beer with your friend at the pub could be the very thing that could save his life. A story I'll share about one of the first sessions we ran in Malak for our program, which focuses on connecting young people to positive mentors. Our model is a bit of martial arts, team building, and meditation, where we reflect on topics and have a group discussion. And one of our participants, who was a middle-aged male, 40 years of age, days prior to coming down to the session, he said he was having suicide ideation. And he said there was nothing for him to do or go to. He felt very isolated. So just coming down to our program, which was free, accessible, and just in the community down at the park, allowed him to be around a group of men and people who wanted to support, listen, and hear each other. And he has a testimonial. Go look on our website, 1% program. You will actually see his testimonial, which says that he was scared to open up at first. We're all scared to open up at first. But once you see someone else started opening up, and then another person opened up, it allowed him to open up. And then these conversations where he had a lot of reflection, a lot of spiritual, mental, and physical reflection, and really trying to shift his value in his health and for himself. So that's what we try to do, is create those access points in the community to make safe and meaningful referrals, or to give them tools or a space that they never knew they had before. But there's so many other factors that add to that problem. But if that's what we can do as our grassroots solution, and that's what the 1% program is about.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, it's really important to have social cohesion, and the way that we can build that is putting in that culture of, like I said, taking action and perhaps volunteering. Like, it can start from schools where, the vast majority of young people and children are. And if you have that kind of habit of volunteering from a young age, you can form so many protective factors, such as, social connections and the feeling that you have a purpose. So I think it would be really important that we try to fix those rates that are going down of young people taking part in volunteering.
Thank you. Who wants to hold the box? You have to ask a question. Great. Stoked about this. Do you reckon? I don't know if this is. I feel like you should throw it.
I was gonna. All right, here it is.
No pressure. Well done.
Is this just like, oh, okay. Hello. So at our school, we don't study like science or anything like that. So I was just wondering, is there a way we could get into like Menzies and stuff like that through like a different pathway? Is that a good question?
I mean, you're not on the panel.
Yeah,
but...
I'm sorry. I was just cheering you on for asking a good question. I don't want to like take away from it. Like Heidi could.
Jade, you go for it. We work together.
I feel like I need to stand up to do this. Thank you for asking a question. That's so brave of you. Come to the Ramashodi Centre. Yeah, high five. You deserve that. Yeah. If you want to come down and talk to me or Heidi afterwards, we work in the Menzies Ramashodi Centre. So we're really focused on youth, and we have work experience programs. We have some cool scholarships and other stuff too. And shameless plug, I started as a student there too. So like, it's an awesome program. Thank you for asking, and I'm sorry for stealing from you.
Jade, were you always interested in science? Did you like science from a young age?
I feel like I'm on the panel.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yes, but also I was going to be an actress, so like I didn't even think about that. I didn't care about going to uni or anything. So I didn't go to uni until I was 21. So like, you can do it. You can chop and change, and it's like so non-linear as well. But I'm obsessed with science now, and especially microbiology. And if I can influence any of you into the invisible world all around us too, like, yeah, it's really cool. I'm going to stop now. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being so brave to ask the question. There's an amazing team down here, and I think so many things that I want to add, but we're running out of time. I wasn't amazing at science. I was always excited about it because I was curious, but I failed subjects and I had tutoring during uni all the way through. I always had tutoring. I failed some subjects at uni, and now last year I was the Young Australian of the Year, you know, for South Australia. So you don't have to be the best at something. What you need is the courage and the humility to step into a place that's probably uncomfortable, because you're probably expecting that everyone in science is super, a certain type of personality. It's the courage, the vulnerability, and the humility to step into new places and be there and be yourself and be able to ask for help. I've never nailed anything in my life. I just go hard and keep coming back and trying, and I fall when I fail, and I just get up and try again. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. Those presentations are the highlights of my life, but my God, can you have me back for all the things that I've screwed up? That would be way longer. You'd be here for hours, but all of us have a story about things that we haven't nailed or done well at, and they are just as important as the bits that you thrive in. They help shape who you are, and it's important to get that understanding about yourself. So be brave. You're all important. Yeah. Can you repeat after me? I'm important.
I'm important.
That was terrible. I am important.
I'm important.
Amazing. I can't wait to see you all thriving and looking after yourselves and looking after each other. Thank you so much for joining us. Can we please have a huge round of applause for our amazing panelists?
How amazing was that? It's a privilege to have you all here today, and you're a bunch of incredible speakers. And Peter, I want to be you when I grow up. I would like to, thank Tiahni, Heidi, Josie, Peter, and Jahdai. You've shared some bold ideas, some lived experience, cultural knowledge, climate action, a real passion for creating change, and advice. It's always inspiring to hear from young people leading the way, as well as reflections from their mentors, and it's working together that helps us to move forward. We each have a token of appreciation for all of our speakers today, and we share this as a way of saying thanks and helping grow our inspiration in the future. helping grow. Like we've got plants too. Do you see the?
Oh, thanks. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
See this. Thank you to Patty and Georgie for handing them out. Now, as we wrap up, it's over to you to carry these message forward and to keep asking, who's at the table? What voice are we listening to? And what role can we each play in building a stronger, fairer, and healthier future? To get us started, for those of us here in person, it might be hard for you to do this online. As you make your way out, you'll be handed a card. This is your invitation to visit our Tree of Inspiration in the foyer. Oh, good, it worked. You'll see this question next to the tree as well. And it's one that we've heard our panelists answer today. We want to hear from you, recognizing that there are many challenges we face. What gives you hope for the future? Please write your answer on the card and attach it to the tree, adding your voice to this collective reflection of hope. We encourage you to keep connecting, to keep questioning, and above all, keep lifting up the next generation of change makers. Thank you all for attending today. For those of us online, thank you for joining us. And for everyone in the room, please join us in the foyer for some light refreshments. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.